Welcome back to the conversation. I'm Francesca Fiorentini. My next guest is the co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. And for 4 years, he worked as a director of strategic campaigns and civic communications director for MoveOn.org. Please welcome Adam Green. Adam, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here.
I know you, along with a lot of others, but you had a huge role in the 2 Senate race wins in this runoff in January. Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff winning by a sliver, but winning, and thanks to the work of grassroots organizing. Tell me about the role of Progressive Change Campaign Committee and what you all did there.
Sure, I'll tell you what we did and why we did it. PCCC members across the country were proud to chip in over $700,000 in grassroots donations, both to Jon Ossoff and Reverend Warnock, but also to over a dozen groups on the ground who were doing the hard work of organizing in the Black community, the AAPI community, Latinx community, the Native American community, and the youth community. Our basic theory of the case was there has been such strong infrastructure built there, in large part thanks to Stacey Abrams and her allies, that let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's just give them the support they need to do what they've been planning for years. And thank goodness they did it. The reason that we got so involved is that we knew that the ceiling of possibility would be higher on every progressive issue that we care about if we won both of those Senate races. Canceling student debt, anything in the healthcare space, anything in the corporate accountability space, climate. We were really looking at a situation where we might have only been dependent on Joe Biden using executive power, and thank goodness we won both. Now we actually have many legislative plays that we can run.
Absolutely. And what do you think, what was different about this campaign? I mean, do you think that the DCCC, right, as opposed to your PCCC, is gonna look at the work that you did and say, maybe we should just be giving to grassroots Black and brown led organizers?
I hope the establishment understands that Stacey Abrams and the groups on the ground really just proved the progressive theory of the case on how to win tough elections, which is deep base engagement and then inspiring that base with big, bold ideas like, say, $2,000 checks, which were the centerpiece of the closing argument by Reverend Warnock and Jon Ossoff. Yeah. I was really dismayed after the November 3rd election when Abigail Spanberger, a conservative Democrat, and others really put out this red herring argument that, we didn't do as well as we wanted because of progressives and various things like abolish, defund the police and socialism. You know what? All of those attacks were used against Jon Ossoff and Reverend Warnock. That's a constant. We will always get attacked. What was different was instead of some candidates running scared, running for Senate, these folks really just ran on their values. And thank goodness they did, because again, we won by 10,000, 20,000 votes. And that wouldn't have happened if we weren't inspiring people with big, bold ideas. So I think this really proved that the progressive way to win is deep base engagement and big, bold ideas. That's how we should do it in 2022 and 2024 as well.
Absolutely. What do you mean when you say deep base engagement? I just want to unpack that. Like what does that look like?
Well, again, the main play in Georgia was not, let's convert Trump voters and hope that they somehow have a change of heart. That's why we were fundraising for groups that were organizing in the Black, Latinx, youth, Asian American, and the Native American space. Let's get our own people out to vote. And my co-founder Stephanie Taylor has a great phrase where she says, we shouldn't be dragging people to the polls. We should be inspiring people to the polls. And I think that that's where the big ideas comes in, right? You can have a minimalist agenda that inspires no one. You can capitulate to Republicans and activate their base and demobilize our base. Or we could do what we just did, which is actually engage people authentically and do it around big ideas. And that's why, we're very hopeful that other Democrats in the Senate will take a look at these 2 Democrats who just won in Georgia and say, maybe we should pass $2,000 checks as we consider COVID relief. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the other side goes big all the time, right? Let's build a wall, right? I mean, for the wrong reasons. And then I think there's this sort of like bad faith argument where it's like, well, then we can't go big because that means we're fascists. It's like, no. It's bad to sort of counter, like fight fire with fire. And we're like, no, we actually should do that. But I want to talk to you about what, speaking of $2,000 checks, Biden did roll out this $1.9 trillion coronavirus bill, which included a $1,600 or $1,400 checks, right, to equal $2,000 checks, to the dismay of some people that they weren't outright $2,000 checks. What are your thoughts on that? And then what are your thoughts on Biden's overall bill here and what it says about his administration?
Yeah, we're a group that is fully willing to criticize Democrats and hold Democrats accountable. It's also important to give credit where credit is due. And I thought Joe Biden coming out with a $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan just weeks after Congress passed a $900 billion plan really showed that he's leaning into doing what is just needed in this moment.
Yeah.
I thought it was also good a couple days ago when Jen Psaki, the new press secretary, was asked by some reporter a very right-wing framed question about, Republicans don't like this. Don't you think you got the dollar amount too high? And she was like, we didn't start with the dollar amount. We started with what we needed to do to help people. And we landed at $1.9 trillion. And my question to any critics would be, what do you want to cut? You want to cut vaccines? You want to cut unemployment insurance? You want to cut aid to the states? Let us know. What do you want to cut? Right? I think that's a really great way of governing on our values, putting the actual methods that we will help people out there and daring the other side to oppose us. The other thing I'm noticing, by the way, is I think we're going to face a crossroads about the definition of bipartisanship. Right? Does bipartisanship mean we need Mitch McConnell to agree with us? If so, we'll bring that 1.9 trillion down to 100 billion, right? But if bipartisanship means A, that we're getting Republican governors on our side, all of whom want massive coronavirus relief, if it means B, that we want Republican voters and Democratic voters, all of who want vaccines and unemployment insurance and jobs and aid for the states, well, that's a different definition. And I hope the Democrats continue to be bold and have Main Street bipartisanship, not DC bipartisanship.
For sure. And I also think the media has a role to play because I've been noticing in the last few days, they've been framing this discussion of the coronavirus bill as in opposition to Biden's call for unity. Like, well, he says he wants unity, but then he wants all this money for, working people. And it's like, how are you framing this discussion right now? But again, we have to not fall into that trap.
Yeah, and just one thing on that, we talk to reporters a fair amount, and I find that when we identify for them the two definitions of bipartisanship, it's a light bulb moment. They're like, oh, right. But they just think, bipartisanship means Mitch McConnell goes along. That's their default. They're not thinking there's two choices, I'm picking one. So I think there is a role. It's great that we have alternative media out there. Big fan of the Young Turks. And we just got to keep educating the public and the media. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, it's the framing. So tell me about, there's been a lot of hand wringing and sort of scrutiny around Biden's administration picks, and every single person is scrutinized. And it seems like they weren't the worst when looking from a progressive lens, but they weren't necessarily the best. We know there's a lot of diversity, which is always really important. But what are your thoughts on his administration and sort of the signals that he's giving to the progressive movement, given that, let's say, Bernie and Warren are not, in his cabinet?
Yeah, I think two things can be true at the same time. One, his cabinet and his administration is not going to be looking like a Warren or Bernie administration would have. But also the Overton window has massively shifted, and this is leaps and bounds above where Obama was in 2009. The difference between Rahm Emanuel and even Ron Klain as chief of staff is night and day. Rahm Emanuel could not wait to spit in the face of progressives, exclude us from the room. Ron Klain is the kind of person who wants progressives at the table in his ideal world. I do think we actually won a lot of progressive victories. I would say Warren wing victories. Janet Yellen, for Treasury Secretary, is someone who brought down the hammer on Wells Fargo when she was Fed chair. That's someone with a proven track record of challenging Wall Street, a far cry from Robert Rubin and other corporate Democrats who have been appointed in the past. Just in the last couple of weeks, we had Rohit Chopra, one of the big antitrust people on the FTC, who's been challenging Facebook and Google, appointed to run the CFPB. We've had several other former Warren staffers trained and versed in holding corporations accountable, appointed to be Deputy Treasury Secretary, or Chief of Staff rather, appointed to be right in the center of staffing the government for environmental positions. Another one in the foreign policy space. And a guy named Bharat is now the deputy of the National Economic Council. We're seeing a lot of just great people, in the administration, in addition to some of the more establishment people. So if the goal is to have a seat at the table, I think we have many seats at the table. And of course, if we ever have a movement president, we'll have even more seats at the table.
Here's hoping. This feels though, it's like an Obama administration. I think there was a lot of like, oh, but there's a lot of Obama appointees, but it feels like an unleashed Obama administration, like what Obama administration 2.0, what he was always supposed to be or could have been. Do you think that's a signal that, I mean, I don't know what you're hearing, but do you think there's been a signal from Biden himself to his staff and his cabinet that like we're for real this time. Like we can actually move an agenda of justice on multiple fronts. I don't know, your thoughts.
I think yes and no to some of the stuff you mentioned. I wouldn't overstate how much the Biden people have learned the lessons of Obama, but I think they have learned some.
Okay.
I do remember when outgoing communications director for Obama, Dan Pfeiffer, did an exit interview and he said, one lesson I learned is that we never went bold and regretted it, which is a great lesson to remember. But I also do truly believe that Joe Biden is trying to rise to this moment on the coronavirus front. And if that means this current $1.9 trillion package, he's gonna have another $2 trillion clean energy jobs package as part of his Build Back Better plan. Honestly, we'll take that. Trillions and trillions of dollars of government helping people's lives, even if they've learned 6 out of 10 lessons, we'll take it. And it feels like we're going in the right direction right now. So I feel pretty good about it.
Awesome, Adam, thanks for explaining all this to us. I hope you will come back. Adam Green, co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, PCCC. That's the CCC that we like here on the Young Turks. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.